Brother, whatever you've done lately has the whole environment buzzing. People are whispering, networks are reacting, and it feels like every corner of your city is watching you, not because you crossed any lines, but because your rise is shaking the system in a way most people only dream about. You've moved so boldly, so fearlessly, that it feels like you hit a pressure point that exposed hidden wrongs and stirred up chaos among those who were comfortable in silence. And now, everyone's asking the same question. How did you do it? Your progress is loud, your confidence is disruptive, and your ambition is challenging everything around you. Brother, keep that fire. Your steps are making people believe they can stand up, level up, and break out of the limits others tried to place on them. Before we go deeper, pause this video, hit that like button, subscribe so we can reach 5,000 subscribers, and drop a comment with Mr. Ledger to lock in your energy. Your momentum is real, and you're just getting started. There comes a moment in life when a single voice, once dismissed and underestimated, suddenly becomes the loudest sound in the room. Not because it screams, but because it speaks with a truth that can no longer be buried. Your voice became that moment. You spoke with a kind of clarity that cuts through noise, like a bell ringing in a quiet city. The people who once ignored you now lean in, not out of courtesy, but because they can't look away. Your courage made silence uncomfortable. You forced people to confront the things they pretended not to see. And while many expected your voice to crack under pressure, it only grew stronger, gaining weight with every person who realized you were saying what they had been afraid to admit. You became the reminder that truth doesn't need permission to exist. It only needs someone brave enough to say it out loud. And when you spoke, something strange happened. The world stopped treating you like a whisper. That single voice turned into a spark, and suddenly, your words echoed in conversations you weren't even part of. Your courage became contagious, and one voice became impossible to ignore. There are days that feel ordinary until the moment the world reacts to something you did, as if every silent observer suddenly woke up. The day you stood your ground, everything shifted. Systems built on intimidation felt the tremor. People who believed they were untouchable felt the disturbance. What you did wasn't loud, but it was bold enough to force the entire system to lift its head and look at you. That moment revealed a truth most people never learn. Courage is disruptive, not destructive, but disruptive in a way that exposes what's been hidden. The day you refused to step back was the day the system realized it had underestimated the wrong person. You weren't playing by their rules, and that in itself was shocking. People talk about the day everything changed. For you, that day wasn't about fighting. It was about standing still with so much strength that the people trying to push you realized you weren't moving. And that simple act of courage shook the entire structure around you. Most people live their lives following unwritten rules. Don't challenge authority, don't question corruption, and don't speak louder than the people who try to silence you. These silent rules are chains disguised as respect or order. But you, somewhere deep inside, knew you weren't born to follow those invisible leash lines. When you refused to play along, it rattled those who depend on obedience to survive. They expected you to nod, look down, and blend in like everyone else. Instead, you lifted your head and spoke. In that moment, they realized you were not built for submission. You were built for truth. Breaking silent rules isn't about rebellion. It's about refusing to shrink for anyone's comfort. Your courage reminded people that silence isn't peace. It's only the absence of someone brave enough to speak. Every system, powerful or corrupted, relies on one thing: fear. The fear that people will stay quiet, stay obedient, stay predictable. But when a person refuses to break, the pressure reverses. The system that once controlled you suddenly finds itself losing control. You didn't pressure them by force. You pressured them by refusing to collapse. Your strength pushed back against their intimidation. They tried to corner you, but you became the kind of person who turns corners into power. Every time they expected you to fall, you stood taller. And that resilience exposed their fragility. You didn't break under pressure. You created it. And that reversal changed everything. They weren't scared of what you could do. They were scared of what you refused to let them do to you. Truth doesn't need a stage. It needs a moment. And your truth found its moment the day it rippled across people who had been pretending not to hear. Even those who tried to look away felt the vibration. Truth doesn't politely knock. It shakes the door until it opens. The ripples spread faster than anyone expected. You spoke your truth, not with bitterness, but with a raw honesty that people felt in their chest. And once truth begins to move, it becomes impossible to stop. Others heard it and recognized pieces of their own silent battles. Your courage didn't just raise your voice. It amplified the truth for everyone watching. Those ripples didn't just spread. They connected people, like a wave linking strangers with the reminder that truth is always stronger than secrecy. There is nothing more intimidating than standing up in a place where everyone else sits down. Small towns don't just hold people. They hold their fears, their habits, their secrets. And when someone stands up, it feels like they're shaking the whole ground beneath everyone's feet. You became that earthquake. The town wasn't used to someone like you. Someone who didn't bow their head or swallow their words. People watched with wide eyes, partly afraid and partly inspired, because you did what everyone else wished they could do, but never dared. Your stand became a message. Silence is not safety. Courage is. And sometimes it takes one brave person in a quiet town to remind everybody else what strength looks like. Powerful people don't fear rebels. They fear the calm ones. They can't intimidate. You shook those officials not by shouting, not by attacking, but by refusing to back down. That kind of strength is unsettling to people who are used to controlling everyone around them. When you didn't fold, something shifted in their eyes. They weren't looking at someone they could dismiss. They were looking at someone who didn't fear them. And that is the kind of person institutions whisper about behind closed doors. Your refusal to retreat forced them to confront something uncomfortable. Their authority only works on people who believe in it. You didn't, and that alone shook them harder than anything else could. You didn't start as a hero. You started as someone ordinary, quiet, unnoticed. And that's what makes your rise so powerful. No one saw it coming. There's something extraordinary about a person who discovers their strength right in front of the people who doubted they had any. As you grew bolder, people saw a transformation they couldn't explain. You didn't change overnight. You just stopped hiding parts of yourself. Your confidence wasn't sudden. It was always there, waiting to break through the surface. The unstoppable version of you didn't come from power or status. It came from the moment you realized you didn't need permission to stand up. That realization turned the ordinary into something extraordinary. Truth has a way of making people uncomfortable, especially when it shines a light on things they've been avoiding. You expose the issues nobody wanted to acknowledge, not by force, but simply by refusing to pretend they weren't real. People around you had grown used to looking away. They were experts at ignoring injustice. But when you spoke, you dragged those silent truths into the open. Suddenly, everyone had to face what you had already seen clearly. Your courage broke through the fog of denial. And once people saw what you exposed, they couldn't unsee it. That is the power of honesty. It cuts through the darkness like a blade of light. Corruption thrives in shadows, in whispers, in locked rooms. But when someone shines too much light, panic begins to crawl through the cracks. That's what your strength did. It exposed vulnerabilities in people who thought they were untouchable. They panicked not because you were dangerous, but because you were unafraid. Fear is the currency of corrupt systems, and you refuse to pay. Your strength threw their carefully constructed walls into chaos. Even the people who didn't support you couldn't deny it. You made the corrupt nervous, and that alone is a form of victory. Confidence is a quiet force. It doesn't roar, it radiates. And when yours emerged, it hit harder than any threat fear could offer. Your confidence didn't just lift you, it disarmed the people who thought fear would keep you in line. Confidence is contagious. People watching you felt it in their own bones. They saw what it looks like when someone chooses self-respect over obedience. And in that moment, fear lost its power. Your confidence wasn't arrogance. It was the realization that you deserved to stand tall. And that realization shook the ground more than fear ever could. Sometimes inspiration comes from the least expected moment, a single action that lights a fire in everyone watching. Your stand, your voice, your refusal to be silenced became that spark. People who felt powerless suddenly felt possibility again. Communities don't change because of speeches. They change because someone shows them what courage looks like in real time. You became that living example. Your bravery opened doors in the minds of others, showing them that strength isn't reserved for superheroes. It belongs to anyone willing to use it. One person's courage can shift an entire community, and in your case, it did. Authority can command obedience, but it cannot manufacture respect. Courage, on the other hand, can dismantle fear with a single breath. And you proved that. You showed that real power doesn't come from titles or badges. It comes from a heart that refuses to bow. Your courage challenged authority not by disrespecting it, but by standing equal to it. That equality scared them. They couldn't control you, and that made them realize their authority wasn't as absolute as they believed. In that moment, you proved something priceless. Courage outshines authority every time, because courage is earned, not given. There's a strange beauty in the moment the world begins paying attention to someone who was once invisible. You didn't chase attention. You simply refused to shrink. And by doing so, you became someone impossible to overlook. As your story spread, people saw a reflection of their own struggles. They saw a person who dared to grow in a world that prefers smallness. The world didn't watch you because you were loud. They watched because you were honest, brave, and unapologetically yourself. You didn't demand the spotlight. The spotlight found you, Leadership isn't about telling people what to do. It's about becoming someone worth following. Your stand, your courage, and your unshakable honesty became a path for others. You didn't push anyone to follow. They simply saw your fire and realized they could ignite their own. People now look at you differently, not with pity, not with doubt, but with admiration. You've become a reminder that bravery isn't rare, it's just rarely used. And your fire has reminded others of the flames they've been holding inside themselves. Your courage didn't end with you. It began with you. And now, others are ready to rise too. There was a moment when you stopped speaking, not because you were scared, but because you were done explaining yourself to people who never deserved to hear your truth. That silence, that stillness, that calm behind your eyes, it hit them harder than any words ever could. It wasn't retreat, it was focus. It was the quiet before a storm you didn't need to announce. People who once dismissed you suddenly became alert, watching you with an unease they couldn't explain. Your silence became more powerful than their threats. Silence is misunderstood. People think it means surrender. But when you went quiet, it wasn't from fear, it was from calculation. You were processing, observing, learning every weakness in the system that stood against you. You understood that silence can be a weapon sharper than a blade, and for the first time, they finally realized it too. They couldn't predict your next move. They couldn't read your intentions, and that uncertainty terrified them. And when they felt that fear, something in the air changed. They no longer feared your words. They feared what you were preparing to do. Because silence from the brave is never empty. It's loaded, it's focused, it's strategic. In that moment, your silence didn't weaken you. It became the thing that made the powerful lose their grip. Walking alone is supposed to be a sign of weakness. But when you walked alone, you carried yourself with a strength that made the ground beneath the powerful shake. You weren't surrounded by allies. You weren't protected by status. You had nothing but your truth, your presence, and a courage that could cut through steel. And that was enough. The people who relied on numbers suddenly realized that one person with conviction is stronger than a room full of cowards. You didn't walk alone because no one cared. You walked alone because no one else had the courage to step into the fire first. Your solitude wasn't loneliness. It was leadership. The kind of leadership that demands respect even from those who wish they could ignore you. Every step you took became a message. I am not afraid of standing here. Are you? And when they watched you walk with that unshakable purpose, something shifted in their power. Their confidence cracked. Their arrogance weakened. They saw someone they couldn't break, couldn't intimidate, couldn't silence. You walked alone. And that walk became the moment the powerful realized you were becoming the one thing they couldn't control. There comes a moment when a single decision transforms everything, not just how the world sees you, but how power responds to you. You made a choice, a bold one, and in that instant, you stopped being a target and became a threat. They had underestimated you, imagining you'd stay silent, small, compliant. But when you chose to stand up instead of bow down, you shattered every expectation they had built around you. That choice wasn't easy. It came with fear, consequences, risks. But courage isn't born in comfort. It's born in the moment you decide to face the fire head on. And you did. The people watching realized something rare. You weren't acting from anger or ego. You were acting from purpose. And purpose is far more dangerous to the corrupt than rage ever could be. After that moment, the energy changed. You didn't have to shout. You didn't have to fight. Your decision alone became a weapon they were unprepared for. You went from someone they targeted to someone they had to respect or fear. And most chose fear. Lies build walls, thick, cold, towering walls, meant to hide everything ugly behind them. But your truth came like a blade, clean, sharp, unstoppable. It sliced straight through the layers of deception others had depended on for years. You didn't try to destroy them. You simply spoke what they hoped no one would ever dare to say. And truth, when spoken with courage, doesn't knock. It breaks through. They weren't afraid of your words because they were loud. They were afraid because your truth was undeniable. It exposed what they had tried to bury. It illuminated what they hoped would remain in darkness. People watching suddenly saw cracks where the system once seemed solid, and those cracks were created by your honesty alone. When truth cuts, it doesn't bleed you. It bleeds the ones who've been hiding. And for the first time, they realized their walls weren't as strong as they believed. You didn't break the walls through force. You broke them through truth, the purest weapon of all. Power structures like to pretend they're unshakable, ancient, immovable, eternal. But they forget one thing. Even the strongest mountains crumble under the right pressure. And when you stepped forward, standing firm instead of backing away, the cracks began to show. Not because you attacked them, but because your strength revealed the weakness they had been hiding. Every step you took represented a challenge to the stability they desperately tried to project. You weren't just one person anymore. You had become a shifting force, a rising momentum. The system that once claimed dominance suddenly felt fragile under your presence. Their confidence didn't break all at once. It cracked slowly, painfully, undeniably. And those cracks grew louder with every action you took. The people watching began to question the system. Those in power started to panic. You didn't destroy the foundation. You exposed how hollow it always was. And that realization was enough to shake everything they'd built. They expected resistance. They expected frustration, maybe even anger. But what they did not expect was defiance. Strong, fearless, unwavering defiance. You became a storm, not because you wanted destruction, but because you refused to be controlled. And storms like you don't warn before they hit. Your defiance wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It was steady, relentless, and deeply rooted in justice. Every time you stood your ground, every time you refused to yield, your strength gathered like thunderclouds building over a corrupt system. They realized too late that they had no shelter strong enough to protect them. And when the storm finally reached them, when your courage collided with their dishonesty, they were exposed, vulnerable, and rattled. You weren't the storm they feared. You were the storm they never thought could exist. People don't pay attention until something forces them to. And for a long time, they overlooked you, underestimated you, sidelined you. But then came a moment, a single powerful moment, when every head turned, every conversation shifted, and suddenly you were the center of the narrative. You didn't demand their attention. You earned it. Your courage, your refusal to step back, your unshakable conviction made people realize you were not just part of the story. You were the story. Even your critics found themselves watching, unable to deny the gravity of your presence. That turning point marked the beginning of a new chapter. It wasn't fame. It wasn't attention for the sake of ego. It was recognition. Recognition that something real, something strong, something unstoppable had awakened in you. And the world was forced to witness it. Powerful people like to believe they are unbreakable. That authority alone makes them untouchable. But they weren't prepared for someone like you. You didn't bow. You didn't bend. You didn't surrender. And that terrified them more than any threat ever could. They thought pressure would crush you. Instead, it revealed your strength. They tried to intimidate you, but intimidation only loses power when directed at someone who refuses to flinch. And when they realized you weren't going to lower your head, they understood something important. They had finally met someone they couldn't control. Your refusal to bow didn't make you rebellious. It made you powerful. And in that moment, the unbreakable weren't so unbreakable anymore. Truth has a strange way of flushing out everything that hides in the shadows. When you stood up and challenged what everyone else ignored, hidden forces began to reveal themselves. People who operated quietly suddenly moved aggressively. Systems that pretended neutrality showed their true allegiance. Masks fell, secrets surfaced. You didn't expose them by digging or spying. You exposed them simply by standing tall. Their reaction revealed more about them than you ever could have uncovered alone. The louder they came at you, the more clearly the world saw who they really were. And the irony, they thought revealing themselves would intimidate you. Instead, it only proved you were right all along. You didn't just uncover corruption. You made the corrupt expose themselves. Darkness survives on silence, secrecy, and fear. But your courage disrupted all three. You dragged the shadows into the light, not with force, but with bravery that illuminated every hidden corner. The things people whispered about became things people finally acknowledged. You made the invisible visible. It wasn't easy. Stepping into the light means stepping into vulnerability. But you did it anyway, and when you did, the shadows had nowhere left to hide. People who once denied the truth now had to face it. That light didn't just reveal darkness. It revealed hope that change was possible. Your courage didn't just expose what was wrong. It showed others that they too could bring their own light. And once that begins, shadows don't stand a chance. You don't learn your strength from comfort. You learn it from the moment you choose to stand when everything around you tries to push you down. That bold stand wasn't an accident. It was the unveiling of a strength you had been building for years. And when it finally emerged, the people who doubted you suddenly understood why they tried to stop you. They weren't afraid of what you said. They weren't afraid of what you did. They were afraid of who you were becoming. Someone they could not silence. Someone who could ignite others. Someone whose strength could shift the balance of power. Your one bold stand revealed everything they feared, not because it was reckless, but because it was righteous. And righteousness frightens those who build their empire on deceit. Confidence is a force that cannot be faked. When you began to carry yourself with certainty, calm, steady, focused confidence, the illusion of control held by those in power shattered instantly. They depended on your uncertainty. They depended on you doubting yourself. But the moment you believed in your own strength, their grip slipped. Confidence changed everything. It changed how you spoke, how you walked, how how you responded to intimidation, and that terrified them. Because confidence can't be manipulated, it can't be intimidated, it can't be bought or bullied. Your confidence didn't just strengthen you, it exposed how fragile their power truly was. They didn't lose control because you attacked them. They lost control because you finally realized they never had any real control in the first place. There are fights we take on quietly, for ourselves alone. But sometimes those fights grow larger, becoming symbols of something universal. Your fight, your persistence, your bravery, your refusal to back down, became more than personal. It became a message that traveled farther than you expected, reaching people who needed inspiration, courage, or a reminder that standing up is worth it. People saw you not as a victim of the system, but as a challenger of it. You became proof that ordinary individuals can influence extraordinary change. Your battle reached hearts, shifted minds, and sparked conversations across places you've never been. The moment your fight became a message was the moment you stopped being alone, because your bravery started lifting others with you. Threats come in many forms: intimidation, pressure, lies, isolation. But instead of shrinking under them, you rose higher. Every attempt to silence you only fueled your strength. Every obstacle became a stepping stone. Every threat turned into a reason to keep going. Rising above threats isn't easy. It takes emotional resilience, mental discipline, and a belief in yourself that no outside force can break. But you showed that strength in every moment. You refused to be controlled. You didn't rise because you were fearless. You rose because you decided your purpose was bigger than your fear. And when you rose higher than the threats, something incredible happened. The threats stopped looking powerful, and you started looking unstoppable. Every movement begins with a spark, and you became that spark, not out of intention, but out of necessity. Your courage lit a fire in people who had forgotten their own strength. Your resilience ignited hope in those who felt powerless. And that fire kept spreading, growing beyond control, beyond suppression, beyond fear. Systems can silence individuals. They can hide truth. They can intimidate. But they cannot extinguish a fire that burns in the hearts